In today's show, the Trailblazers don't make any moves at the trade deadline, but it doesn't matter because they're never losing again. They beat the Kings 6 in a row. Start planning the parade. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. Coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, so make it a part of your daily routine. Make your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, they're just good, guys. They're just good, y'all. They're just a good basketball team. I think we've gotten to that point where when I walked into the arena tonight, I thought the Blazers were going to win because I thought the Blazers were a better basketball team than the Sacramento Kings, particularly the circumstances of the Kings upon their arrival. But yeah, they're good. We'll talk about that because they won. They won again. That's what they do. They win all of their games. They've won 6 in a row, their longest winning streak since 2021, the longest active winning streak of any team in the league. They're hooping. And I don't want to get too far out in front of it in the early stages of the show, but they're hooping in a way where my confidence level in them being competitive, if not straight up better than the team they face every night, has drastically changed because the streak just won't end. We'll talk about that. Do our fastest recap in the West. Blazers beat the Kings 108-102. I had a really nice conversation with Toumani Camara in the locker room after the game. I will share some highlights from that one. And then I'll close the show talking about the trade deadline. The Blazers didn't make a trade. Joe Cronin addressed the media prior to the game. The vibes are too good to pour cold water on the situation. I will talk about the trade deadline. I have some opinions about it. I will do that at the end of the show. But I think what you, dear listener, deserve is to appreciate your basketball team, the local ball club, or if you're somewhere else, the local to me ball club's about 10 minutes from my house. The local to me ball club hooping. They're just playing really stinking well. Let's do our fast recap in the West. We'll get all into it. Blazers beat the Kings 108-102. 27-27 after one. Shaedon Sharpe comes in off the bench and pours in 10 points and grabs 3 boards. He was good right away. Missed a free throw, but he was good right away. He was actually, excuse me, he did miss a free throw. I'm confused. That was Denny. Hooping right away. Shaedon Sharpe puts his imprint on the game. Blazers lead by 4 at halftime. DA has 12 and 4 at halftime, joining Shaedon Sharpe. You're getting a good DeAndre Ayton night. You're getting a good Shaedon Sharpe night, and you're eventually going to get a really good Anfernee Simons night as well. Kings led by as many as 6 in the third quarter, and the Blazers come back thanks to a little bit of juice from Delano Banton to close the quarter, and they go into the fourth up to 79-77. Neither team led by more than 6 over the first 3 quarters. In fact, neither team led by more than 7 until the 1:22 mark of the fourth quarter. This game was close. The Blazers couldn't pull away. Kings, new look Kings with Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Domantas Sabonis, Keegan Murray, and Malik Monk against the old look Blazers who didn't make any changes because why would you mess up the perfect roster? Blazers finally get the first lead of the game. That's more than 6 points. Neither team has held a lead larger than 6. They finally get a 7-point lead when DeAndre Ayton hits a little mid-range jumper off a feed from Jeremy Grant with 1:22 left. But the Kings take a timeout. They said, okay, there's 80 seconds left in this game. We got to make it happen. DeMar DeRozan hits a quick 3 out of the timeout, just 6 seconds of possession, hits a 3. It's a 4-point game. The Blazers need to score, and you come down and get the most important possession of the game. Shaedon Sharpe, after the Blazers, run an action, while swings to him, okay, Simons can't, Simons doesn't see his shot. Anfernee Simons doesn't see his shot. Swing to Shaedon Sharpe at the top of the key. He attacks, gets all the way to the rim, doesn't go in. Toumani Camara does what he does. He crashes hard. He is an aggressive offensive rebounder and a very good one. He almost tips in the miss, doesn't, but stays with it, grabs the rebound in a crowd, kicks back out. The Blazers cycle back through a little bit of offense with the clock ticking now under 14 seconds, and Anfernee Simons gets the ball on the right wing. Cross, sidestep, splash, 7-point game with 42.9 seconds remaining. The arena goes nuts. Not a full, I mean, maybe they called it a sellout. No, they did not. Under 17 in this one. But it was like the building had some juice, even though it wasn't a totally full arena. And when that shot hit, they had been waiting to roar. Shaedon Sharpe missed one at the top of the key that would have blown the damn roof off the thing. They were waiting to roar. When Anfernee Simons hits that with 40 seconds left, the roars finally came. They earned it. The Kings, they hung around and got a dunk and a layup and fouled, but they never could threaten. Down 7 with 40 seconds left. The Blazers hold on to win 108-102. That's your fastest recap in the West. Yeah, they're good. They're just good. Anfernee Simons, 30.6 dimes, no turnovers, 18 from DeAndre Ayton, 24 off the bench from Shaedon Sharpe, 10 in that first quarter, and then It was more of an Anfernee Simons show late, quite frankly. Ant had 16 in the fourth quarter to put the game away. He in 5 of 6 and 4 of 5 threes in the fourth. That's the dude who slammed the door shut. But you don't get there without Shaedon Sharpe early. You don't get there without a nice first half from DA, and you don't get there without Toumani Camara. Talk about him a bunch in the second segment, but Toumani was 2 of 13 from the floor. He scored 4 points, and the Blazers lost his minutes. He was -4. Single game plus minus is a very meaningless thing. Toumani played 36 minutes. I guess they won the minutes he was on the bench. That means the 12 minutes he sat by 10. Congratulations. Toumani was Blazers' best player on the court, I think, tonight. He was fantastic. Ant was really good. I don't mean to take away from Ant's game by that. I just mean that Toumani was fantastic. And again, the Blazers do this. This has kind of been the theme of this win streak, the theme of their, they've now won 10 of 11. The theme of this run that they're on is that they don't rely on one single person to carry the load. They have a baseline of positive defense. And they have a variety of people on any given night that can score. And the pecking order, and Chauncey Billups addressed this before the game, the pecking order kind of got sorted out. There was a time in the year that there was some maybe angst among some veteran players. Chauncey didn't say this, but almost certainly Jeremy Grant. There was some angst among some veteran players, Jeremy Grant, about kind of like who's, shot diet, who gets to shoot, who gets to, who's... where the shots come from, the distribution of how those things happen. And Chauncey Billups had to have a conversation that said, we can play a certain way and lose, or we can put our egos aside. We can experience the ego death of the Portland Trailblazers and be a team that plays the right way, be a team that plays what Kings coach Doug Christie said before the game is kind of in the image of Chauncey Billups. And boy, do they play with an identity that is reminiscent of what Chauncey would absolutely want to be in his playing days. So on a night where Scoot Henderson, 5 points on 2 of 5, and Denny Avdia, who scored 7 in the first quarter and then just 9 in the game and didn't play that much because Shaedon Sharpe was playing really well, and I thought 2 was great, and Jeremy Grant was playing good defense, and they didn't go back to Denny. But to not need the Denny night, not need a Scoot night, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter. The Blazers, they tried Chris Murray in the first half, and that didn't really work, and so they went to Delano Banton in the second half. They played 9 guys, but 10, really 8 and 2 halves to get to 9. And Delano Banton provided a spark that they needed when they were kind of in the mud. And that really that kind of speaks to what they are right now. Is that it's just they have different. I mentioned that I don't think they're super deep. Rob Williams didn't play today. Very weird that Rob Williams comes. They don't trade Rob Williams and then gets a DNP CD. But I think, sort of more generally speaking, what the Blazers have this baseline of good defense, right? They held the Kings to 102. You hold a team under 105 in the modern NBA, you're going to have a chance to win. You hold a team to 100 points, you probably win these games. That's just how it works in the way the league works now. That number used to be 78. Now it's 100. But the Blazers shot pretty well from 3. They made 16 threes. A lot of that was Anfernee Simons getting hot, but they never pulled away from the Kings. They just made enough plays to get it done. And what the sort of phrase that I wrote down in my notebook is, with this baseline of defense, what the Blazers have now is just problem solvers. They don't have a go-to guy. They run some actions. They run a bunch of high pick and roll stuff. They'll run, 2 two screens, double drag if you want to get into it, but they'll run two high screens. They'll run, action for two screens away. They'll run their little pet actions, but like it is relatively egalitarian. It is relatively egalitarian. If you are rolling, Chauncey Billups will roll with you and he'll call more plays. And he mentioned after the game that he calls a bunch of plays this year in a way to kind of get guys organized. And you'll cook. And some nights it's Denny, and some nights it's Scoot, and some nights it's Shaden, and some nights it's Anfernee Simons, and it's been DeAndre Ayton of late. But it is because they're playing good enough defense to stay in and be competitive and sometimes blow teams out in every game. They just need problem solvers on offense right now. They don't need that sort of nuclear guy. They don't need they don't need the sun because the planets are taking care of it. Like they don't need that heliocentric type of thing where it's just like, hey, this dude will bail us out. They have this balance to get it done in a way that's really, really special. And obviously like Ant at the end of the game took control, but he has 16 of his 30 in the fourth quarter. Before he went off for that fourth quarter surge, like the reason the Blazers were up 2 was because of how good Shaden Sharp had been and because of how good DeAndre Ayton had been, or in the early quarters, and that balance, and because of how impactful Toumani had been despite not being able to make any shots, like that balance is what has been the sort of identity of this team. Is they have problem solvers. They just they figure out a way to get it done, and they have a baseline of being a very competitive defense. A lot of that very competitive defense stems from having Toumani Camara, who early in the year, if you had asked me, I would have said he's not going to make an all-defense team. The Blazers are a bad defensive team. It's just hard to get awards at the end of the season when you're the 26th defense in the league. They've been awesome. Now for 11 games. 11 games is not, we're talking a little more than 10% of the season, right? But like the trend seems to be that they've figured out that side of the ball in a serious way. And if you have a month or 6 weeks of playing at a very high level defense, which the Blazers are, it's hard to say like they're definitely going to have that, but they're certainly trending in that direction. You're going to get some love. And I talked with a few folks, media and Blazers staffers in today, and like, I think Toumani Camara not only will get votes for an all-defense team, I think Toumani Camara deserves to be on an all-defensive team this year. I think Toumani Camara is one of the 10 best defenders in the league. I don't think I've given him his flowers enough on this program. In fact, he was awesome against the Pacers, and I barely talked about him on the show. Like I mentioned that he was really good, but I didn't... I didn't spend a lot of time. It was more of a big picture show, and I didn't spend a lot of time appreciating how good he had been. I want to appreciate Toumani Camara in the second segment. He was really good, and I had a conversation with him after the game in the locker room, and it kind of gave me a little bit of insight into how he got to be the way that he is. Join me in that second segment, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you about Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%, plus you also get 4% APY on your cash and non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risks. Rate subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to Robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national average savings account interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. All right. Toumani Camara was maybe the Blazers' best player in this game. I think I said he was 4 for 13. He's freaking 2 for 13. He's 2 for 13. I think he was the best player on the court. With all due respect to Anfernee Simons, who was very good, and like they won the game for them in the fourth quarter on offense. Toumani was everywhere. He was everywhere. He's just so impactful. And the more I watch him up close, and I think you really appreciate this in the gym more than on TV, because in the gym you can see all of the prep work he does. There was a moment in the fourth quarter when he was coming up the court, and I could tell that he was about to get Domantas Sabonis. And I said to my colleague seated next to me, I said, Jason Quick. I said to Quick, like, Domas better watch out because Toumani's going to get him. Came down the court. Toumani stayed connected to him. As soon as Domantas Sabonis tried to set a hard screen, Toumani Camara fell down. Fourth foul. Sabonis would eventually foul out. Just Toumani has a gift. He has a gift. He knows how to be a pest. And so I asked him about it after the game. Because Toumani's offensive rebound and kick out that led to the Anfernee Simons 3 is one of the plays of the game. Obviously, the three-pointer is huge. You don't win the game without making shots, but that epitomizes the game. And this stretch, that epitomizes kind of what Toumani is and the hustle that makes him special. And the kind of run the Blazers have been on has been because guys are selfless and they defend and they are more team-oriented than they are individualistic. And Toumani embodies that. He embodies this run in so many ways. Obviously, when the way they're playing right now, pretty much anybody who plays deserves credit because everybody's had their night at some point, right? Like pretty much up and down the roster, anyone who's gotten in the game has had their night at some point. Obviously, they're keeping the rotation a little tight, so we're talking about 7 dudes plus Rob Williams. But like Toumani embodies what the turnaround has looked like: a commitment to defense, a selfless attitude, and a willingness to do little grimy stuff. Because if you do little grimy stuff, you give yourselves more opportunity, and then you can disrupt the other team. And if you disrupt the other team, and you have enough offense from whoever it might be that night, you might blow a team out if they're just not ready for you. Or in the case of the last couple games, obviously they blew out the Pacers, but Monday and Thursday's game, it's like you just might be able to outlast a team because of your grit and your toughness. So I asked Toumani about what makes him, a lot of guys want to come into the league and score. And I asked him about kind of what is the thing that drives his willingness to be who he is, right? To be someone who doesn't need to score. And he said, part of it is he just wants to win, right? And he just figured out how that would help him win, and he wanted to play. And that was how he had his path to playing and path to winning, was being someone who was going to be impactful without scoring. He says, obviously you need to be able to score, and he works on his offense and all of those things, but how he was going to find his role and find what made him, coming as a second-round pick, was figuring out what was the thing that you did well that could get you on the court and then go from there. Toumani Camara is adaptable. So I asked him about what was, where did that come from? And we started talking, and a little bit was finding his way in college. When Toumani Camara was recruited, he was a high-level recruit. Do not get it twisted. Toumani Camara was, borderline top 100 recruit, a 4-star kid who got recruited out of South Florida to the University of Georgia. He was college teammates with Anthony Edwards. Like, this was he was a dude who was heavily recruited and went to a big school. Like, Georgia's not like this awesome basketball program, obviously, but like he had a ton of interest and went to an SEC program as a 4-star recruit. But he was recruited as a small forward and a power forward. In fact, most recruiting services think that he's a 6'6" small forward. And after he transferred from Georgia and ended up at Dayton, you know what Toumani Camara became? He became a center because they needed him. And he said he basically never played a minute of small forward at Dayton because that's not what they needed, because Toumani Camara is adaptable. And so he had to find ways to help his team win. This was a kid who probably had dreams of being Kevin Durant. A 6'6", 4-star kid going to a major school, a lefty athlete who can, turn into something, that sort of versatile, all toolsy wing. Obviously, Durant's a little bigger and et cetera, but like, that's not what the Dayton Flyers needed. They needed a small ball 5. And so Toumani Camara adapted. And when he got to the Blazers and got to the league, what Portland needed was a point of attack defender, so he adapted and found his way into the lineup because that was the way he could get in. And then this season, he was last year he pressed all the time. He pressed so much in the backcourt. And today, when I was talking to him, he talked about how like he's really kind of given up guarding in the backcourt a little bit. He's teams are hip to him pressing in the backcourt, and the way that he needs to be more impactful is as a half-court defender. He's kind of said, I've got to figure out ways to take away the game, knowing that I'm only going to be guarding guys in the half court. He said, I used to be that 94-foot defender, but I have to adapt. Toumani Camara is adaptable. He figures out what the game needs, and he brings it to the game. As a rookie in the NBA, Toumani Camara was frustrated by how superstars got different calls. He was often tasked as a rookie with guarding the other team's best player, and he told me this evening that one of his frustrations at that age in his first year in the league with the Trailblazers was that superstars got a different whistle, and he felt like it was unfair, and the game was too hard when you guarded the best players because the way the referees officiated them was not the spirit of the way everyone was officiated. And it was hard on him. It was frustrating because he would get the tough assignments knowing that he was at a disadvantage because the other person was more famous than him. So Toumani learned to flop. When I asked him about flopping, he told me point blank, I don't flop. And I said, okay, well, you've really learned the art of drawing an offensive foul. He said, I have. Toumani doesn't flop, but he has learned the dark arts because Toumani is adaptable. So when he drew 5 offensive fouls against the Indiana Pacers, according to the Blazers' Tom Haberstroh, this was shared with me by Kevin Calabro prior to the game, but he told me it was a Haberstroh stat that they were shared on the broadcast, so if you watch on TV, you may have heard this, but Toumani Camara drew 5 offensive fouls against the Indiana Pacers, the most anyone has drawn in a game this season. He drew a obvious one where he was baiting Domantas Sabonis for about 25 feet walking across the court because Toumani Camara learned that the way to beat the superstars was to earn the respect of the whistle. And he said that's what he did. You can't just go out there and flop and flail around. You have to be competitive first. The reason that it works for Toumani Camara is because he's competitive. He competes. And the refs have learned to appreciate his competitive level. So then when he does feel an elbow or he does feel an arm extend, he's learned to embellish. He's learned to sell it. He's learned to accept the contact and actually get hit. Because if he actually gets hit, he can draw a foul. Toumani Camara adapted. What I've really appreciated about him is that knows what he does and goes and does it every day. But talking to him, I think what the art of what makes Toumani special is that he knows what he does, he goes and does it every day, and then he gets a little bit better at it because he knows he has to fit whatever it is, whether it was playing center in college or learning the dark arts of embellishment and flopping. Toumani adapted. And it speaks to where the Blazers are, right? It's like they needed to adapt. They sucked for the first 41 games, and they needed to make a commitment to defense, a commitment to team play, and that commitment to defense, that commitment to helping each other and holding each other accountable on that end. And obviously, I think you can get hot on defense the way you can get hot on offense. I don't know. I don't know if the Blazers are going to be the best defensive team in the league for the remainder of the season or anything like that. But what I know is that when you watch them play, it feels like they have it feels like they can defend. The defense part feels pretty darn real. And if they get enough problem solvers on offense, it feels real there too. And Toumani's adaptability speaks to where the Blazers desperately needed. A willingness to change, a willingness to adapt, a willingness to figure out this isn't working, how do you win? And that's the story of what Toumani Camara has been. What do I need to do to win? Great, I'll be there and try to win. He's fun. And I appreciate his time with me in the locker room. It was a fascinating chat with someone I really appreciate. And I said this to close the first segment. I'll say it again here. I think Toumani Camara is one of the 10 best defensive players in the league. I don't know if he'll make an All-NBA team, but I know now, in a way that I didn't feel in December, he deserves to be on an All-NBA team. I believe he is one of the best 10 defenders in the NBA. I believe it's a positionless award now. Get him on your ballots. He deserves to be there. And the Blazers are a very good defensive team, and he, right now, certainly, and we'll see how long it continues, And the reason starts with two. And because he's such a good defender, Denny's gifts, and I think both him and Jeremy have been really good on defense. And because you've got those three wings, and DeAndre Ayton has bought into the mess. And I think, honestly, Anfernee Simons, for all of his faults, has bought into being a much more competitive defender. There's some things are always going to be the way they are, but I don't think his problem has been effort as much, particularly during the stretch. Like it has trickled down across the roster. Okay, I want to close the show and talk a little bit about the trade deadline. The Blazers didn't do anything. Part of me thinks that's fine. The other part of me thinks that this is a problem for another day, and what the Blazers did is delay a problem that the rent is eventually going to come due. Let's talk about inaction and the trade deadline. Join me in the third segment, won't ya? First, though, let's talk about Gametime. It's the place to buy tickets to live events, whatever those events are. Like, what do you want to go to? A concert? Gametime. Comedy show? Gametime. Sporting event? Gametime. Blazers are going to be on the road till after the All-Star break, but they'll be back. If you want to go see a Blazers game and you want to get deals on tickets, well, check out Gametime, because you can find tickets at the right price and remove the headache. Plus, they got a new feature called Gametime Picks. It's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Gametime Picks, Gametime, the app that you can download and easily navigate, those Gametime Picks, they do all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals, so you don't have to waste time searching for thousands, hundreds of endless ticket listings. What I like about Gametime Picks and Gametime in general is because the app is super easy to use. In a few clicks, you can find exactly what you're looking for. And if you're uncertain, like if you haven't been to the Moda Center before, or you're going to a new venue, they've got a seat view feature where you can, before you purchase anything, you can see exactly what your seat looks like in a 360 view. They got super deals where you can find prime seats with incredible value. Plus, toggle all-in pricing, so when you're surfing right there on the app, you'll see exactly how much you're going to pay with no surprise fees at checkouts. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Use that redemption code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. The vibes of the Blazers are really good right now. They're playing really well. I am generally a pessimist and some would say hater. I've called myself a hater on this podcast too. But I think it's undeniable that the Blazers are fun, enjoyable, and I'm maybe a little bit slow to say like this is real and they are good. But I walked into the arena today and I said to a Blazers employee and a friend of mine, I said, the Blazers are going to win. Like, I'm confident they're going to win. When I walked into the arena on Monday against the Suns, I thought the Blazers were going to win. On Saturday, when they played the Suns, I knew they were going to win because the Suns are on second night of back-to-back and they're old. But I had confidence they're going to beat the Kings. I think the Blazers right now are just straight up better than the Kings. Blazers are 23-29. Kings are 25-26. They're not that far apart in the standings, and I think in terms of talent and production right now, the Blazers are better than the Kings. It feels different. What different means into the deep future and beyond, and whether the Blazers are interested in like faking injuries, I don't think they will. And in fact, Joe Cronin said today at his press conference that he thinks it would be wrong to take away the opportunity to make the play-in from his team. I thought that was the most interesting quote that he had today at his press conference when he addressed the media. I think it would be unfair to take that opportunity away from them. So the implication being like, I'm not going to just sit guys out. I'm going to give them a chance to chase it. I don't know what he can't really sit in front of the microphone and be like, I'm gonna be taking it away from them. But like, they are in a position where they probably can't get to the bottom, even if they tank, even if they were to lose, conceivably every game for the remainder of the season, they probably still wouldn't catch the true, bottom three. And like, they're not going to lose every game for the remainder of the season. They're playing well, and I don't think to jack up the vibes is really the move right now. All of that is to say, I don't want to rain. My goal in this particular podcast was not to rain on anyone's parade, because everyone enjoys to. You deserve to enjoy this. You deserve to enjoy this. If you're a Trailblazers fan, you deserve to enjoy this stretch. No one should take the joy away from you. But I do have some opinions about the Blazers not doing anything at the trade deadline, and I'm going to share them with you. And they might be more negative than the rest of the show in terms of general outlook on the team. Fair warning. But you made it 30 minutes in. You can hang. Blazers didn't make any trades. Not surprising. On yesterday's show, I said that the most likely moves would be a very minor move or nothing, and my money was on nothing. Indeed, nothing happened. And to read the reporting from Aaron Fentress of the Oregonian in his story today, and to hear Joe Cronin talk to the media when he addressed reporters before the game, and based on some discussions I had in the arena tonight while I was there, here's my read on what happened. The Blazers were open but not particularly motivated to trade their vets, right? And the vets, again, these are like people who can rent a car without paying premiums in the United States. They've celebrated their 25th birthday. Anfernee Simons, Jeremy Grant, Rob Williams, DeAndre Ayton. When we talk about the Blazers making trades, we're talking about that quartet. To some extent, Matisse Thybulle, but he hasn't played all year. I don't even actually include him in the thinking here. But based on the reporting from Aaron Fentress and Joe Cronin's comments and some conversations I had with people, here's what I think happened. The Blazers valued their players at the price of at least a first-round pick of some sort and not a bunch of crappy money. And if you can offer us that, we would be willing to talk Jeremy Grant and Anfernee Simons and Rob Williams and maybe DeAndre Ayton even, although I can't imagine they really shopped Ayton. And the Blazers fielded calls, and to hear Joe Cronin tell it, they didn't maybe make a ton of calls today on deadline day, but there was stuff earlier in the week and the last couple days that they kind of felt like they were getting a little bit closer on and laying some groundwork, but eventually fizzled as teams either backed out or went in other directions. And because they weren't desperately trying to pursue these trades, it wasn't like they woke up, at early on Thursday morning and said, we have to get a deal done. They said, have we found anything? No. We're comfortable where we are. Blazers are playing their best basketball. There's no reason to tear this thing down. And I do think, maybe there is, right? But there's certainly less incentive to do it when you feel like, well, we've made some moves and we're playing well. This is the whole point. This is what we maybe envisioned to some extent. Although I bet if you had to ask the Blazers front office with some truth serum, they would say, yeah, we didn't think we would ever win 6 in a row this season or 10 of 11 at any point. So that is my read on it. The Blazers had an asking price that was beyond second-round picks and bad contracts. That asking price was not met, so they did not pursue trades. I think the generous read, the generously positive read, is that inaction and not taking a bad deal is good, because taking a bad deal, making a bad trade is bad. That's regardless. Making a trade just to make a trade or feeling pressured to make a move and change up the roster and getting back, crappy value or paying to get off someone and losing an asset in the process, which obviously they were never going to do. That's bad, right? You don't want to make bad deals. But what I feel about this is that at some point they're going to have to, the rent's going to come due. They're either going to have to decide that they want to give new contracts to DeAndre Ayton and Anfernee Simons, which I would regard as very surprising and probably straight up bad business, but considering their last draft picks and their position, but if each of those gentlemen will be are extension eligible and are entering the final year of their contract next season, the rent's going to come due. And if you overvalue your assets now, right? If the Blazers value their assets at, hey, we want first round picks and we don't want bad money, that's a fine place to be in theory, but even in the summertime, when there are more, you can be a little more fluid with how your rosters work, and there's going to be more teams that have more ability to make moves, and incentives shift because some teams, just like some teams right now are chasing the playoffs, some teams are just trying to duck the tax, and everything, your incentives will change or your sort of goals will change in the summertime. There could be a bigger market. But if the Blazers still overvalue their assets when you get to summertime, a deal is not likely to. I don't think the market gets better for Anfernee Simons. I don't think it gets better for Jeremy Grant. I don't think it gets better for DeAndre Ayton. What it gets is different. As expiring money, there's a chance that those guys are easier to move, but expiring money typically isn't valuable to the team trading it unless they are willing to take on onerous money on the back half. Hey, we'll trade you this big expiring contract for a contract that has multiple years left, and we'll get a sweetener of some sort to help facilitate that trade, either a player or a pick, right? Like that's how expiring money is valuable, because teams would like to, hey, we want to have cap space in the summer of 2026. Can you take this money off our books? It's typically players under contract are much more valuable to trade because the team you're trading them to have those players under contract for multiple seasons. So the idea that Anfernee Simons or DeAndre Ayton will be magically more valuable as expirings, yeah, they could be if you treat them a certain way. Inaction now is not necessarily poisonous, but in general, the Blazers are going to have to face this reality that they must change the roster. Whether if this stretch lasts for eternity and the Blazers freaking make the playoffs and are good, I am very comfortable changing my tune. I think realistically, they're fairly unlikely to make the play-in just because the teams in front of them and the talent. But they're hooping right now. So I'll reserve judgment on kind of how we get there. But I think in general, it's fine not to take a bad deal at this trade deadline. It is fine not to make a bad deal at this trade deadline. But the things that have led to this position, valuing DeAndre Ayton at his price tag, giving Jeremy Grant the contract you did, not moving Jeremy Grant or Anfernee Simons at prior stops, that challenge that has put you in, that you are faced at the trade deadline where it's the rest of the league doesn't value the players the way we value them. That's still going to be true in June, which makes the roster movement perhaps more challenging. When I said something similar last year that I didn't think the market would be better, but it might be different, you know why it was different? Because the Blazers attached 2 picks to Malcolm Brogdon, and they got Denny Avdia, who's pretty damn good. But what changed was the Blazers' willingness to trade 2 first-round picks. That's what changed. And perhaps the Blazers will find a similar deal like that in the future and continue to build in a way that I find a little bizarre, but has, I guess, in the stretch from January 19th forward, been pretty darn effective. We're now closing in on 3 weeks of them being just straight up good. So I think the sky isn't falling by the lack of by inaction, but I still think that the problems or the challenges that led to no trades at the trade deadline are still going to be the things that come up in the summertime as the Blazers look to retool, improve, or even at any point just get better by trading players on their roster. Because this isn't a tanking thing. Once you get at some point, it's a winning thing. And if you overvalue your assets when you're trying to win, it presents the same problem. I think that will be the hurdle, or that will be the thing they will have to navigate. What are the Blazers deals the Blazers are comfortable making versus what does the market actually say is available to them? And if those things never match up, you kind of get stuck. And I feel like for several transaction cycles in a row, that's what it's been for the Blazers, and they've been a little bit stuck. Factually, since trading Damian Lillard, the Blazers have made 2 additional trades: Delano Banton and Denny Avdia. They have been slow to make the more aggressive altering moves. And now I've run a little long on this show because it's a Friday program and we had a lot to talk about. Blazers are hooping and they're heading out for a 3-game road trip beginning Saturday in Minnesota. Next time you hear my voice, we will talk about that one. Enjoy this. Enjoy the run they're on. Go and be. If you are capable of saying this team rocks and I enjoy them, say it as loud as you can right now, because right now this team rocks and they're easy to enjoy. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.